I'm going to get right into it. I mean, first off, I'm going to put on some music. It's going to be very abrupt, just a heads up. Audio track is unavailable. You got to be kidding me. How is it unavailable? There we go. And then let's do the enchantment roll. 2 mana, green or black, uncommon, either an enchantment or a creature. Outland Liberator. 2 mana, green, uncommon creature, but it is not a human. 2 mana, green, uncommon creature that is not a human. Wild Growth Walker. Not an elemental. Not a human and not an elemental. From before 2017? Is there an elf? Dwynen's Elite? Not an elf. From 2016. 2 mana green creature that is not a human, elemental, or elf. Is there, or a werewolf, which is actually pretty relevant. I mean, not super relevant when we get to the Eldritch Ring. Eggs. Is there an Omenport one? Let's see. Hooded Brawler's a common. Hope Tender's a human. So was Omenport 2017 it was. So what are we working with? We got Kaladesh, Eldritch Moon, SOI. I should know these sets. Obsessive Skinner, and Oath of the Gatewatch. Is there an Eldrazi that this would be? Because Devoid is also under this, right? Is there I don't think there's a Devoid 2-drop uncommon in green, though. No, oh, Noose Constrictor. Noose Constrictor. Oh, come on, ref. This is bullshit. Come on, ref. All right, I'm gonna Obsessive Skinner. Nope, wrong one. Obsessive. It is an SOI, so it's Oath? Oh my god. Oath of the Gatewatch? Oath of the Gatewatch. 2 mana uncommon green card from Oath of the Gatewatch that is not an elf or a snake or a spider or a human or an elemental. What the hell is it? Is there a plant? Jetty Offshoot costs 1. There's no like weird mana dork that I'm thinking of, right? It wouldn't be a wall. Like what else is it going to be? Is it because Wall Blossoms is a plant wall, so it's neither of those. Is it a beast? Is there a 2-drop beast that I'm missing? Because the 2-drop landfall creature is a 2-drop landfall creature. But Snarling Gnarlid? Or Snapping Gnarlid. It is a beast. Okay, 2 mana uncommon beast. I legit might not know this card. There's like Untamed Kavu, but that's a Kavu. I feel like this one doubles counters on it. God, I don't remember this card at all. I don't remember the set at all. 2 mana uncommon beast from Oath of the Gatewatch? And it's not a cat either. It's legitimately a beast. Like, it's not a cat beast. 2 mana uncommon beast. Typically, these cards... Typically, I would have looked at this card. I imagine I would have looked at this card and thought, like, oh, this could be playable in mono green. Because it's a 2 mana uncommon beast. Like a 2-mana uncommon green creature. 2-mana uncommon beast. It's not the kicker one. Fuck, I don't know. I might have to tap out. I genuinely can't think of anything. It's not Untamed Kavu. It's... What would it be? What would it be? Oh, is it Baloth Pup? It's Baloth Pup. Yep. Woo! Okay. I went through my brain trying to think of, like, what do you do at 2 mana green uncommon? And the thought went through my head of 3 power creature. And I was like, what are the 3 power creatures at uncommon from this era? And it was fucking Baloth Pup. Let's go. All right, I feel better about this pick than literally anything. That feels great. All right. Got you, motherfucker. Spellify. Enchantment Aura. 2 mana. Or 2 different colors. That's a lot of different words. What? When? No. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Enchant. Creature. Is it imprisoned in the moon? No. No, it's imprisoned in the moon, right? Imprisoned in the moon. Yep. Woo! The goat! The goat! The goat! That's why he's the goat! The goat! Ooh. Ooh. It's too easy. It's too easy. Oh yeah, we should do adcom ads. Oh, not Tez. Adcom ads, and anytime someone goes ads, they'll just think of the epic storm. Adcom. Edit com ads. There we go. The Elder Scrolls? I was keeping it magic related at the very least. Alright, cool. Hell yeah. Okie dokie. Let's talk about the cards. So this is the set, like the final of the set review. I kind of experimented with how I wanted to talk about this set, knowing that I would be talking about more cards than usual this time around. Not just because there's the big score and there's obviously the commander product, which there always is, but also this set looked pretty good. There are a lot of pretty pushed cards in here, and the guest list would be interesting for Gladiator and all that. No, we haven't talked about the jitte. I think this is jitte. Nope, there. Yeah, we haven't talked about jitte yet. We'll talk about it today. Don't worry. I don't know if this is how I'm going to do it moving forward. Typically, I like to just break the... I think the LCI was the sweet point where it went a bit long, but we did divide it into 2 streams, and I was really into that. So I think I'm going to try that moving forward, because this one might end up being a very short stream, one that if you are a VOD watcher... is going to be like, I don't know, an hour or something. But I'll see how I feel. I'll see how it does. Who knows? But yeah, we have a couple of cards to talk about here. I can go through the commander cards as well, but they're not in the card gallery, so I'm going to have to pull up like Mythic Spoiler or whatever to look at them. The commander cards are neat. I think there's a handful of them that are genuinely good. Let me take a look. Hello. 1 second. All right. What did I have? How many of these cards did I have from the commander? 1, 2. Is it literally just 2? There's no way. 2. It's 2. I have 2 cards from the commander set that I think are okay. There's a third card that I want to talk about mostly because I like roasting Surge and Nelson. So I'm going to do that as well. Not to mention it's a rat, which might be, important. Bullseye, welcome back for the 39th month. Do you always just do this when I'm not at my chair? Like, has there ever been a moment where I'm at my chair when you subscribe? Some people like the chair and rat you. I understand. 39 months on an unhinged preview stream. Well, bing bong. And a merry bing bong to you too. Thank you for all the support. Glad to have you. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. An inside pigeon for the 58th month. Welcome back. Glad to have you. Thank you so much for the support. That's a lot of pigeons. That's a lot of months. I hope you enjoyed the bird game. Oh, it was during Worldle. Oh, okay. Yeah. I don't have my headphones on, so I must not have heard it. And I wasn't looking at my screen. So that makes sense. Anyways, glad to have you. Yeah, just a heads up. The North 100 set review, 80 cards. 80 cards. We talked about 80 cards. So get ready. But yeah, let's jump. Oh no, I almost said let's jump right into it. That's a classic YouTuber. Yeah, it's going to be a 3-parter. It's going to be a 3-parter. In limited and nowhere else. Hey, some of these cards are pretty good, Plachow. Some of them are pretty good. This one, maybe not so much. Collector's Cage. 1 and a white for an artifact with Hideaway 5. So it enters the battlefield. You look at the top 5 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, the rest go on the bottom in a random order. Then you can pay 1 and tap. You put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Then if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. So this one we actually didn't talk about on North 100. But the more I look at this card, the more I realize that this card might actually just be good. It's tough because it's a cheap artifact that can give you repeat value. That part is great. I'm a big fan of that card. Or that part of this card. The fact that you can easily get 3 different creatures with differing power in a artifact deck, whether it be equipment card changing stat lines, or the fact that your deck probably plays some of the cheap little durdles to facilitate your big idiots, is pretty interesting. And then casting a free spell is also just kind of nice. Mind you, the free spell is, in this kind of deck, is not always going to be the most blowout kind of card, but I don't think it has to be. People think of Hideaway and they think of like, oh my, I get an Emrakul or I get my 5-drop or whatever. And it's like, no, because this card doesn't come into play tapped, so you just play it. Like there are scenarios where you can play this, bump something immediately, you meet the cost, and then it pops and gives you a card. And so that's pretty good. 3 mana to buff something and just like to get to cast another card. It's pretty strong. Hello, Surge. Welcome, Brew Crew. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Thank you. We've just begun. We just started up, so you haven't really missed anything. Other than, I guess, the Enchant Worldle and the Spellify. We are talking about... This is the Outlaws of Thunder Junction set review. This is my final swath of cards for the set review. Talking about a card that we actually missed on North 100. Mind you, I don't know how good this is. Like I'm talking about all the positives of this card, and all those positives translate better to the Gladiator artifact deck, just because that's a deck that will play more creatures, wants more ways of scaling its creatures, as well as, you know, has bigger, more powerful, well, not more powerful cards, but has bigger kind of hammers, right? You have more like top end Karns and whatnot. Yeah, you can, this gets around timing restrictions. Yeah, Collector's Cage. I think it's an interesting card. I think that it can play out like a repeatable value engine. God forbid it gets destroyed or you blink it and you get to replay it off Luris or off of Savine's Reclamation or any kind of artifact recursion. Yeah. I don't know. I think there's a lot going on for this card. It does suffer a little bit from being a 101st card where you're like, oh, I mean, I wouldn't mind if I had this in my deck somehow, but I don't know if I want to include it in the 100 cards, you know? Kind of interesting card. I think I'm leaning towards this being better than it looks, but also, you know, very specific as to where it's going to show up. You could also just play it in counters. Like the fact that it's an artifact is what really ties these cards together. But even playing this in green-white counters is like totally reasonable. Harvester of Misery, another card from the big score. 5 mana, 5/4 menace. When Harvester of Misery enters the battlefield, other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. Then you can pay 1 and a black to discard Harvester of Misery, and target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. This is another card that feels, I mean, this is like the perfect, not even the perfect Gladiator card, because this is a little awkward. It's okay, so Massacre Worm and Massacre Girl are the creatures that hit the battlefield and kill everything, right? Massacre Girl typically is a wrath the board, leave a 4/4 menace, but also requires a bit of setup. Massacre Worm is dropping the hammer, and that says, fuck your board in particular, I'm going to clear out all your little Dorcases, and you're going to take 1,000,000 damage. And anytime you chump block my 6/5, you're going to take 1,000,000 damage. So this is kind of like a combination of the two. 5/4 menace, genuinely difficult to block. Gets rid of all their little creatures. So if they're double blocking this, they're probably doing it with something that's bigger. And then you have the added ability where you can just pitch it and give -2/-2 to a creature that can't be countered. I mean, it can be countered by ward or whatever, but it's not a spell. Puts the card in the graveyard. It might be nice to bring back with like a recurring nightmare or whatever. So this is a funny card where it has a lot of good going for it that makes me want to play it with cards that are not currently available in Gladiator, but its power level and what it hits is not going to be strong enough for Canadian Highlander. You know what I mean? Like, this card would be great to play with Recurring Nightmare. This would be a very fun card to play with Recurring Nightmare. It's a reasonable thing to reanimate, where you could just like pitch to -2/-2 a bigger creature, reanimate it, comes back, kills all their little creatures, and gives something else -4/-4. I don't think it does enough as a single, like, not there isn't a part of this card, a single part of this card that is impressive. And while Magic cards are more than just the sum of their parts, I don't think the end result is something that is too appealing. I don't know why this card's... I mean, I know why this card's a mythic, because this card was probably going to be... All the cards from Big are mythics. That sucks for arena players, because I don't want you wasting your wild cards on all these things. The Mr. Bobs, welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for supporting the channel. Glad to have you. Good to see you. How you doing? How you been? Hostile Investigator. 3 and a black for a 4/3 Ogre Rogue Detective. When Hostile Investigator enters the battlefield, target opponent discards a card. Whenever one or more players discard one or more cards, investigate. This ability triggers only once each turn. This is a goofy card that doesn't nearly do enough in 1v1. It's a 4 mana, 3 toughness creature that just says, hey, I'm a ravenous rats. That also can draw you a card. If they kill this with the discard on the stack, they don't get the card. But, you know, then you've effectively 2-for-1'd them. It's kind of funny that the target opponent discards a card is an ability that gets a lot better on bigger things, like on bigger bodies, but also it's not super appealing to pay 4 mana to necessarily just do something like that. Like City Stalker Connoisseur is just so much better when compared to this card, right? They have to discard the biggest thing. It's a 3/3 death touch. You get a blood token. Like blood token's not a clue, but all that is just much stronger. Yeah, it's I don't think this card does enough. And you know, sure, if you're playing this in Commander, have fun. Generous Plunderer. 1 in red for a 2/2 human rogue from Big Score. With Menace, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may create a treasure token. When you do, target opponent creates a tapped treasure token. And whenever Generous Plunderer attacks, it deals damage to defending player equal number of artifacts they control. I think this card's bad. I typically think any of these kind of cards are bad. They tend to be overvalued by players because, well, I'm getting a treasure token. I don't care if my opponent gets one. They get a tapped one, and I get to use this immediately, and I get to attack them and dome them for 1. In 1v1, these cards end up always falling flat. What is it? Something Tycoon was the similar kind of card. Black Market Tycoon, which had like the repeatable treasure generation, and people were like, whoa, that's not an okay ability. Against artifacts, it could just one-shot though. Yeah, but if you're playing this deck in like a red aggressive deck or a red X aggressive deck, you're already going to have a good time against the artifacts deck. You don't need this to push you over the top. You just need to play creatures on curve, turn them sideways, and, you know, maybe having a braid for good measure. Yeah, it's I don't think this card does enough, and I don't think you need to give, like, the quality of red creatures nowadays is so high, especially 2-drops. This is going to sound weird, but red 2-drops used to be the weakest part of mono red. Like, the worst part about mono red was that its 2-drops sucked. Let me pull this up. I wish I could find, here is first printing and then release date. Yeah, sure, why not? Oh god, there's so many red 2-drops. Like, red 2-drops were really bad at like this point. They started to get a little bit better, right? Like Stormblood Berserker was like one of the best 2-drops that you could play in mono red. Ash Zealot was one of the best 2-drops you could play in mono red. Peasy was incredible in mono red. Incredible because you still played Skull Clamp. Some lists of red still play Skull Clamp, but you played Collateral Damage and all these other cards. Eidolon obviously just became the best red 2-drop, but you see what I mean? Like, we're going through this and it's just the 2-drops are just not great. Abbott is fine. People played Mage Ring Bully because they weren't good enough, right? You needed more 2s and they just weren't good enough. So you would play, people played Grenzo. And then they started getting better around Kari Zev's time. Because then we get Kari Zev, then we get Harsh Mentor, we get Earthshaker Kenra and Firebrand Archer. And like, that's all in the same kind of like block, right? Like, I mean, Aether Revolt is a different one, but we got from Amonkhet block alone, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, or sorry, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we get 3 good 2s in there. And then it's a little bit of a dry spell. But then we get some more powerful twos. You get the Pyromancer, you get Crater Maker, you get Runaway Steamkin, Dreadhorde Arcanist, obviously busted magic card. Orcish Hellraiser was very strong for a while. You get Shieldbreaker, Robber of the Rich, Rimrock Knight. Like, then it really starts juicing up. But like red 2s were so bad, but now look at the ones you have, right? The ones that have stood the test of time. Dreadhorde Arcanist, Earthshaker Kenra, Heartfire Immolator is just like an unreal magic card that is just so big. Electrostatic Infantry is just massive. If you're going the Flame Breather package, you can go for the Flame Breather package. Cemetery Gatekeeper. This is a red 2-drop with a powerful ability on offense, defense. Also randomly a Hate Bear. Also randomly just Ankh Mishra. Right? You see what I mean? Red 2s are absurd now. You don't need to play a card that even has like a potential to give your opponent an upside. You could play one that has 3 positive abilities. This is wild. This card doesn't target. And this card also just doesn't see universal play. There are people that build their red deck and go like, I don't know if I want to play a 1 toughness 2. What if it gets got? And then this set also, I mean, fuck, we have Inti, Fugitive Codebreaker, Slick Show Off from the new set. Where's the one that Robin really likes? Robin likes this one. The Belligerent Yearling. 2 mana, 3/2 trample with another ability that occasionally pops up. But he just likes it because it's a 2 mana, 3/2 trample in red. Like, I would rather play Belligerent Yearling than whatever this other card is. Charming Scoundrel, yeah. Messed up magic card. Kenra Spell Spear. 2 mana, 2/2 trample prowess, and then it just turns into something they can never kill. Feldon draws you so many cards. I guess what I'm saying is we can do better than this card. Molten Duplication. 1 in a red for a sorcery from the big score. You create a token that's a copy of target artifact or creature you control, except it's an artifact in addition to its other types. It gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So this is technically copy of Twin Flame number 2. If you don't know what Twin Flame is, well, I'm just going to bring this over here again. 2 mana sorcery with Strive. You pick any number of creatures and you make a token that's a copy of them, and except it has haste. And then this combos with what's its nuts? Dual Caster Mage. 3 mana, 2/2 flash. When it ETBs, you copy target instant or sorcery spell. You may choose new targets. So what you do is you cast the Twin Flame targeting something else. Then you flash in the Dual Caster Mage. You copy the Twin Flame. The copy of the Twin Flame targets Dual Caster Mage, which then makes a Dual Caster Mage to copy Twin Flame, and you go infinite. So this is a second copy for Dual Caster Mage Twin Flame, which is kind of fun. Not to mention, this card is like reasonable. Like, this card is 2 mana to just like make a haste copy of your creature is not the worst thing in the world. To me, to make a copy of an artifact, that's a bit less of a powerful play, but you know, maybe you need to make another copy of Bone Splitter. I don't know. But yeah, this, like, Twin Flame is kind of a meme, but if you built, I do think Pestermite Splinter Twin combo is kind of underrated in Canlander. We don't really see it anymore. And it's kind of funny that we don't, because it's really good against the initiative. It does lose out to the fact that Solitude exists and that there are more free counters and Pyrokinesis is, you know, getting played. But like, you're a blue-red deck. You're fine. I do think that, like, Is It Moon's Splinter Twin combo is probably due for a comeback. If Spellseeker gets reduced in points, then we're really into it for some like weird like Blue Moon with like Riptide Laboratory and like a wizard package. Unironically. That's the thing. If Spellseeker goes down a point, which it probably will at some point in time, you can catch me playing that on Earth 100 Showdown and being like, no, I think this deck's legit. So it's cool to get another copy of that, but it's very narrow where it shows up. What up, Jules? How you doing? Ancient cornucopia. 2 and a green for an artifact. Whenever you cast a spell that's 1 or more colors, you gain 1 life for each of the spell's colors. Do this only once each turn. Tap to add a mana of any color. I am not super excited about this card. It just kind of doesn't do enough. I mean, if you have like a multicolored, like if you're obviously for 1v1, Gladiator or Highlander, it's bad. But for Commander, I don't even know in Commander if this is going to like do what I want. I like 3 mana rocks, but I would have to be playing a multicolor matters deck that also gave a hoot about life gain, which is not nothing. That could be who knows, that could be a deck out there somewhere, but it's just pretty unexciting to me. Yeah, like if you're building, that's a great one, Xavian. If you're building like 4-color Aragorn with charms or like Ramos, then sure, if you need that extra little oomph, it's fine. It's Commander, you can play whatever the hell you want. But outside of that, I'm not excited. This card I'm excited about. Bristle Bud Farmer. 2 green for a 5/5 creature plant druid with trample. When Bristlebud Farmer enters the battlefield, you create 2 food tokens, and whenever it attacks, you may sacrifice a food. If you do, mill 3 cards, then put a permanent card from among them into your hand. So food in Highlander is pretty reasonable. Like, it's a legitimate deck. There have been people on the Discord putting up results. There have been people in their weeklies that share results from, on the Discord. We have a food pilot locally that has been playing this and like X1ing, and I think they took down an event with it too. This was one of their more recent lists that I did actually keep down. Isn't the food deck Abzan anyways? Yeah, it's Abzan splashing blue for Oko and the Goose Mother. And yeah, there are 2 people playing food/game objects in the current league. In Highlander or in Gladiator? Because this card, also for Gladiator, like, yeah, game objects.deck is shockingly good. Oh, in our Discord. Cool. Yeah. Oh, you're on Leovold? Oh, you greedy boy. What? That's, holy smokes. So yeah, food is actually, oh, and this fucking card. I slept on this card for so long, back for seconds. How do I just like look at this card? It's 2 and a black for a sorcery with bargain. I mean, I could just do this. 2 and a black for a sorcery with bargain. Return up to 2 creatures from your graveyard to your hand. If it was bargained, you may put one of those cards with mana value 4 or less onto the battlefield instead of your hand. So it's like 3 mana, sack a food or a clue or a treasure or whatever, and then bring back your Shieldred, bring back your Bristlebud Farmer into play, and then, put another card in your hand for some reason. It's shockingly good. And yeah, this Farmer card, it's, 4 mana, 5/5 trample, good. Makes 2 of these game objects, both of them food, very good. And if you get to attack with it, you can start cashing in food for cards, which is exactly what you want. Exactly what you want. So yeah, I think that this card is pretty strong in the food deck, the game objects deck. Like, for a mono green or like a Gruul Monsters or like green white or whatever, I don't know. It sounds so stupid. It's a 4 mana 5/5 trample with 2 upsides. But I look at this and I just go, I wish it had haste. Like, I think, and maybe this is just me as a person that plays against these decks more than with these decks, is that I look at these cards like this and I go, well, at least it's not Questing Beast, Axebane Ferox, Shifting Ceratops, I don't know, the Lupine thing. Like, the haste creatures are the ones that really fuck you up. Because at least for this, like at least for the ones that just ETB, you can deal, like you get a little bit of like room to potentially deal with it. You can kind of say like, well, I'm going to take a hit here, and then I can start firing off sorcery speed removal or chump blocking or whatever. And then the play pattern of like 3 mana 4/4 into Questing Beast or into Ferox, and you're like, oh, I'm taking 8 damage. And I have played my second land. Like that feels, that's when it's backbreaking. Sandstorm Salvager. 2 and a green for a 1/1 human artificer. When Sandstorm Salvager enters the battlefield, you make a 3/3 colorless golem artifact creature token. And you can pay 2 generic and tap. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature token you control. They gain trample until end of turn. I love golems. I love the golem factory. Love making the golems. So you got yourself a splicer here. That activated ability is kind of messed up. Oh, wait, no, it says creature token. Okay, never mind. I'm not as high on this. For whatever reason, in my head, I thought it was like put a 1/1 counter on each of your creature tokens, and then all your creatures gain trample until end of turn. I'm less high on this card. But if you have, I mean, like a tokens deck could maybe get away with this, because this ability, if you can meet the requirement of having a sufficient amount of tokens, this is fucked, right? Like in a token strategy, this just represents 2 bodies for a single card, and then buffing your entire team of, well, tokens, and then giving them trample. Like that is huge. I don't think that this has Highlander qualities to it. But I do think that for Gladiator, it's totally fine. Gladiator tokens. The green, white, or the Naya tokens list could run this. Yeah, I think there's enough good here. This artwork is incredible, by the way. I think it might be my favorite in the set. And not just because it's a large, powerful lady with like a... I don't even know what this is. Some kind of like... It almost looks like an Avacyn. The symbol of Avacyn's church. But yeah, you got the hair, you got the hat, you got the glare, you got the swinging back with the double hander. Ooh, I like that the golem's in the background, but she looks like she's doing the work. Mora didn't want friends, but she didn't mind having someone to watch her back. Ooh, it's good. It's real good. Real good. Tex, bud, how you doing? Welcome back for the 56th month. Ooh, a button. Glad to have you. Good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for everything you do and all the support. It means a lot to me. Cypher Rays, welcome to the stream. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for supporting the channel and joining us. I'm glad to have you, and I'm good to see you. I'm good to see you. I'm good, and I'm seeing you, and it's glad to see you and have you. All right. Get ready. Lost Jitte. 1 mana, legendary artifact, equipment. Equip 1. Whenever a equipped creature deals combat damage, put a charge counter on Lost Jitte. Remove a charge counter from Lost Jitte. Choose 1. Untap target land. Target creature can't block this turn. And put a 1/1 counter on equipped creature. So the way that they get you with these cards, and why this card has caused so much discussion, I know that this is human nature. Maybe it's my autism talking. But if I see a card like this, I don't even compare it to Umezawa's Jitte. There's just no reason to compare this card to Umezawa's Jitte. They are completely different cards, right? They have different costs to play, different costs to equip. They put on a different amount of counters. They do different things, like completely different things. They impact the board in a different way. It's not even close to Jitte. And I think that might muddy people's evaluation of this card. Because I don't think this card is very good, but I do think that it gets away. How do I word this? You shouldn't play bad cards to make good cards better, but it is okay to play cards of a lower power level if they synergize very well with the rest of your deck, right? And so, like, yeah, the fact that this is a 1 mana equipment that costs 1, a 1 mana artifact is such a low cost of inclusion, especially when you can find this off of Urza Saga, right? That's pretty interesting. And being able to just like Trinket Mage for this or Steel Shaper's Gift for this and get it going is worth talking about, right? You need to be including this card in a deck that cares less about it being equipment and more about it being a 1 mana artifact that pushes the game along, is the way that I'm looking at this card. And so while I'm not super enthused by this Magic card, it is something that I think it's a little unfair to just call this like completely unplayable. At least that's my initial read on this card. It's nice that it triggers off of any combat damage, which means that, you know, you get to start buffing things. You get to start like if it connects, then it is going to reliably set up future hitting your opponent, right? It's a this jitte invests in your future, but not in a way that completely shuts down anything and everything your opponent is looking to do. So I'm going to try this card out in some of the low to the ground artifact decks with Urza Saga. But again, I don't know, like I look at this and I'm like, am I just getting Shadow Spear over this every time? And if I'm not getting Shadow Spear, am I just getting Lava Spur Boots? And then why am I playing this? For what it's worth, it is another 1 mana equipment, and I think we are pretty close to having some kind of Pure Steel Paladin Storm deck like available. And I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying that we're getting close to like a meme North 100 stream where I bring in like Retract Storm. I miss that deck. I miss Retract Storm. It wasn't that great, but you know, you could kill people with it. I did win it, not to brag, I did win a modern FNM with it. You can clap now. Yeah, Paladin Cheerios. Yeah. Oh, that's not what I wanted to close. Mindslaver. We talked about this card existing in this set, but we never actually talked about like what this card does and why it's so good. Obviously, it's a reprint, but it's a 6 mana legendary artifact that you can pay for, tap, sacrifice it. You control target player during that player's next turn. If you have recursion and you can set up Mindslaver loops, congratulations, you've won the game. As far as the recursive things that we have, let's see. Like we have the Esoteric Duplicator, Bong Jam and Weedler's preview card. Then great, you can set up a loop. And those are both artifacts, which is even better. Means that we can set up a loop here while being consistent with our card type and our theme, our deck's theme. Dies, return that to your hand. I don't want to do that. Do we have any enchantments that we can use? We have a lot of cards that when they ETB, you can return an artifact. Or you could just like, I mean, technically we have Hana. We have Hana Ship's Navigator, which is kind of funny. We have Harnessed Snubhorn, 4 mana 2/5. When it deals combat damage to a player, you return an artifact or enchantment from the graveyard to play. There's a welder, but not the right welder. We have... You're not going to do anything. I mean, there's the 4 mana Lauren that just says whenever a legend ETBs, you get to return an artifact from your graveyard to your hand. I'm looking. What else do we have? I mean, we have a bunch of refurbished style cards. I'm only looking at returning artifacts. That returns artifact creatures. I mean, we have Scrap Welder. We have the Goblin Engineer, which is the other, like, that, the good welder. But we have Scrap Welder. We also have Tamashi. Tamashi can actually do it. It's a bit costly, but you can Tamashi and, like, Mindslaver loop them. Yeah, okay. So we have stuff to be able to slaver lock them, which is kind of interesting. But if you've played against Emrakul the Promised End, you'll realize that sometimes they don't even need the 13/13. Because just mind-slavering someone just kills them. It kills them dead. God forbid we get Academy Ruins onto Arena at some point in time. Which I mean, Ian, if you're listening. Academy Ruins? Huh? It's a cool magic card. Yeah. You are? Oh. Yeah, this, Mindslaver. It's a powerful magic card. I'd recommend giving it a shot. Oh, yeah, we have Emery. What am I even talking about? Yeah, Slaver Lock, people. Genuinely a really exciting inclusion for the artifact deck. Speaking of, oh my god, Fomori Vault from the big score. It's a land that taps for a colorless, and then you can pay 3 tap, discard a card. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of artifacts you control. Put one of those cards into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Okay. So this is a bit of a pricey cost to activate. 3 and tap, discard a card. But you just get to convert your chaff into trash. And by that, I mean artifacts. You don't even have to pick an artifact. If you are playing an artifact deck, chances are your mana is already pretty loosey-goosey. And just non-committal because so many of your cards are colorless. And so you get to play additional colorless lands. Being able to convert whatever you have in your hand into any other card is pretty exciting. And you get to pick anything. It's just the number of artifacts you control, which in an artifact deck is likely going to be very high. And then getting to play that card, letting you get anything is pretty strong. And then untapping and getting to play that card is also quite good. I'm going to be considering this in Paradox combo in Highlander, because you can set up some pretty spicy Candelabra of Tawnos kind of loops with this card. Might actually look to play this card in eggs, because Academy, this card, Candle, Sack Outlet, artifacts that draw cards. You can just zoom through your deck and add a shitload of mana. This might not mean a lot to people that don't play these decks, but it's okay. Anytime I talk about this like Academy deck loop where I'm like, okay, so you have a way to sack artifacts, and you have Tolarian Academy, and you have Candelabra of Tawnos, and people go like, of course you're going to win. It's like, no, you don't get it. You don't get it. We now have a way to pop off with those cards that is a land, which means that you can Sylvan Scrying for the, like, it just, anytime you get a land for these kind of decks, it's busted, right? Because this is a deck, the Eggs deck or the Academy decks play the Reap and Sow, Sylvan Scrying, Crop Rotation, Expedition Map, Wargate. Like, we have ways to get lands into play and to tutor for more lands, and any card that lets you convert, like, the closer we get to all of our tutors being able to find effectively whatever we want is huge, right? So, like, Sylvan Scrying, finding Inventor's Fair, finding any artifact means that Sylvan Scrying technically just finds you an artifact, right? But this lets you find a repeatable, not every artifact is going to be repeatable advantage, whereas this card can be repeat advantage that you can find off of any Artifact tutor, because it works the other way, right? Artifact tutor for expedition map for one of these lands. So it just, it's great. It's very exciting. Very excited to play with this card. Dot Dashington, welcome back for the 8th month. Yeehaw and how. Thank you so much for the support. Glad to have you. Good to see you. Tarnation Vista. Incredible art here. Elena Danner knocking it out of the park as per usual. Yeehaw. As Tarnation Vista enters the battlefield tapped, and as it enters, you choose a color. Add 1 mana of the chosen color, and then pay 1 tap for each color among monocolored permanents you control. Add 1 color. So in order for this card to add mana, like more mana than you would normally get, right? You would need to have 3 monocolored permanents. Then you can tap this and a land and add 3 mana. So now we're up mana. That might be tough to get. Right? That asks a lot. And especially because they're monocolored permanents. Right? Lands are permanents, but they're not colors. Right? Yes, a Killer Among Us makes 4 permanents, which is pretty funny. Yeah, it's I'm trying to think of a spot that wants this, because it's a cool ability. Anytime a land can tap for more than 1 mana is worth looking at. But like, I don't know. It's a lot of asks to get this to tap for 3 to 5 mana, you know? Yeah, I'm not super stoked on this Magic card, but it is pretty neat. It's a cool. I'm excited to see if this card does anything. It has a great name. It's got great art. It does something that could technically be busted. And that's pretty cool. Yes, you need 3 monocolored cards in order for this to do anything. Tokens do have colors. So you would need, because 1 mana to play, or 1 mana from presumably another land plus tapping this land. So you're effectively down 2 mana. But if you have 3 different ones, then you're up 3 mana, right? Or you're up 1 mana because you pay 2 to get 3. Weird card. Limited out of 10. Limited out of 10 is such a good insult. Limited out of 10. I think that's it for the guests. Oh, where am I going with this? Are we opening up the mythic spoiler? Let's see, because the commander cards are coming out today too. And so there's going to be stuff to talk about there. I don't know. Are the commander decks in their entirety previewed? Does anybody know? Yeah, okay, that looks like they are. Great. I'm not going to talk about every single card here. I'm just going to talk about some of the ones that I think are kind of exciting, or, you know, that are cute. Yeah, let's talk about this one. Why would it... There we go. Oh, I was kidding. It was a joke. It was a prank. Vengeful regrowth. Well, now Rapthew's in the way. Hold on. Rapthew, I gotta move you over here, bud. Big plant. Beard Witch, welcome back for the 23rd month. Thanks for the reviews, Ben. Well, thank you for the support. That means a lot to me. Vengeful Regrowth. 6 mana sorcery. Return 3 lands from your graveyard to play tapped. And you make that many 4/2 plant warrior creature tokens with reach. And then flashback for 8 mana. 6 mana is a lot of mana. Returning 3 lands is shockingly good. And then making 3 4/2s is also not that bad. I think this card is probably too weak for Highlander. Like, it just doesn't do enough at 6 mana, especially because you only get so many 6 drops. Even in a like really dedicated lands deck, like if I'm looking at this card, I'm thinking about Scapeshift. Like we're talking like a rug or 4-color Scapeshift list that also plays Field of the Dead and whatnot. And the fact that it sets itself up to be flashbacked immediately is pretty strong. Like the play pattern of Vengeful, regrowth, get back these lands. Ideally, you Field of the Dead or you Valakut, and it makes a board ready to, it threatens with lethal with just like all the zombies you put into play plus the plants, right? And then if that board gets got, then you could just flash it back and do it again, which is pretty terrifying. And then when you combine that with like the fact that maybe you are returning, like I said, Valakut, maybe you are getting back Dark Depths combo. Like it's expensive, but anytime a card sets itself up for the second version, it's worth looking at, right? Like that's the Golos theory of like, the first time you cast this card sets you up to cast it a second time if things go wrong. If things don't go wrong, then you're probably winning the game. And that's worth looking at, even if it is expensive and green, because it thankfully at least slides into you know what? Actually, fuck it. I'm going to add this to the spreadsheet. Yeah, that's right. I'm adding it to the spreadsheet. We're talking about this card on North 100, a Canadian Highlander podcast. Does Serge know about it yet? Yeah, I mean, we looked at the preview. But I think at the time we were like, eh. And then, I mean, Serge is technically still in chat. I don't know why you'd be listening to this. This is all drivel. But yeah, I'm coming around on this card. I've come around on this card. I'm finally washed. Playing that lands deck changed me. By the way, there's a new North 100 Showdown that came out. Playing that lands deck changed me. Is North 100 more than just the YouTube videos? I mean, there's an audio version of the podcast you can listen to. Oh. You want to hear washed? You're going to see washed this weekend, Plachow. You're going to truly see how washed I am at the tournament on Saturday. Rumbleweed, 10 and a green. For an 8/8 plant elemental. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each land card in your graveyard. Vigilance, reach, and trample. And when Rumbleweed enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +3/+3 and gain trample until end of turn. Is there an audio version of Showdown? No, just for the North 100 podcast. I imagine if you go to any of the North 100 podcast episodes, there will be a link in the description that sends you towards where you can find all the versions of this. This is so much mana. The fact that this doesn't have haste and that this is like 10 mana. Jesus Christ. How many lands do you need in your graveyard for this to be relevant? Like, if you have 5 lands in your graveyard, you're still paying 6 mana. I'm not into this card. It really needs some other stuff. You're 10. Yeah. If you have 10, then maybe this is okay. This is just so much. Hermit Druid. There are so many things you can do with Hermit Druid that just are more reliable than Rumbleweed. Although I do really like this name. But yeah, I think this is too much of a cost. Although I do have an aggro loam deck that I've been cooking up. It's like an aggro loam landfall deck that did get a couple of toys from the set. Dune Chanter. Why am I even opening the new window? This is just so much easier. I guess if there's a card where like my face is stopping or blocking off a part of it. I don't really care about Dune Chanter. All I care about is doing your Embrace the Unknown. That's too expensive, but yada yada yada. This one's kind of funny. The Sand Scout. 2-mana 2/2 human scout. When it ETBs, if an opponent controls more lands than you, search your library for a desert card and put it into play, tapped. And then whenever one or more lands are put into your graveyard from anywhere, you make a 1/1 green, red, and white sand warrior token. Ability triggers only once each turn. So 2-mana 2/2 that could potentially ramp you, pretty good. 2-mana 2/2 that also is just going to make a 1/1 token anytime you crack a fetch, crack a horizon land, crack a desert, use your waste, use your strip, whatever. Not that bad. A little narrow. This, huh? Okay. I thought you said exactly what I said, but in a different voice. Oh, I said cracka. Good talk. Thank you. The unfortunate part is that a lot of these deserts are bad. Like, you could play Shafet Dunes. Shafet Dunes is pretty good. That is a Shafet Dunes and Scavenger Grounds see play. Typically, Scavenger Grounds isn't going to see play in the same deck that you play Sand Scout. Yeah, I feel like this card is just a little too narrow and also tends to not... The play pattern of this card tends to not really line up with what you're looking to do. Which kind of just leaves it as a commander card on Fort. Angel of Indemnity. 6-mana 5/5 flying lifelink angel warrior. When it ETBs, return target permanent with mana value 4 or less from your graveyard to play and has encore for 8. You can ignore that encore part. I don't know how much it's coming up. If there is a... I mean, you could probably make a loop with this card. It does loop with Safi Eric's daughter. It is a 6-mana card. There are a bunch of loops that you could set up with this card in sack outlets. And that's kind of interesting. It's kind of a neat, like, recurring nightmare reanimation target that can also just combo kill. But I think there's too much to go through for this card to be legit. Kiri Talented Sprout, 4 mana and Naya for a 0/3 legendary creature plant druid that other plants and tree folk get +2/+0. Beginning of your post-combat main phase, you return a plant, tree folk, or land card from your graveyard to your hand. 2 slow. Dies to bolt, gets Caracas. You have to play it in your pre-combat, and then once you go to combat step, they just muck this card, and you paid 4 mana for nothing. On to the, what is this, the blue-red one? Leyline Dowser's kind of interesting, but I think it's not good enough. There's another Storm card. Finally, we don't need to play blue-green High Tide. We can Hunting Pack. We don't need the Hunting Pack. We can do it with Elemental Eruption. I like this card a little bit. The Crackling Spellslinger. 3 red for a 2/2 human wizard with flash, and when it ETBs, if you cast it, the next instant or sorcery spell you cast this turn has prowess. Yeah, this one I am willing to get a little more loosey-goosey. Did I say prowess? Has storm. Excuse me. It has storm. Storm is the word written on the card there. It has storm. 5 mana 2/2 flash. Also, what would giving an instant or sorcery prowess do? You know? What would it do? So she gives a spell storm. And that's a very powerful line of text that you can slide up next to Lightning Bolt or Time Walk or I don't know. Well, that's all you need, really. Time Walk and Lightning Bolt. I could see this card showing up in Big Gay Electric Prince Moonstorm or like the mono red storm list. It's not a card that's going to show up in like top tier archetypes. Although, if I'm playing Ritual Storm, like casting a bunch of rituals into this and then Demonic Tutor just like kills them immediately. But then if I'm playing a bunch of rituals into a Demonic Tutor, are they already dead? This can do it without using my graveyard, which is kind of nice. That might be something. Like, that might actually be something. Like, when you get cards like this, I know it sounds like I'm just talking about a bunch of bullshit, or I mentioned like bringing up these like lists that have not been played all that much. But it does something powerful, unique. What it does is often just win the game. and also lets you play around a very specific type of hate. Whether or not that is good enough is another story. But I think it's funny enough that I'm willing to try it, right? Like, if they're sitting on endurance and you're playing like a storm list with like Yogg-Will and whatnot, and you're just like, okay, shitload of mana, spellslinger, and then like demonic tutor. Yeah, it's a human. Recruiters get it. It's a wizard for that wizard deck we were talking about. Don't play it in that one. I mean, this card plus Ancestral Recall is pretty good. All right, this card, I will be picking up a copy of this card, not just because the artwork is incredible. Yeah, there's something here. I think there's something here. This card is so funny. Thunderclap Drake, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Drake with flying. Instants and sorceries you cast cost 1 less to cast. Which already, we just have a new Brawl or Goblin Electromancer. Very nice to have. It has flying, which means that if you're on the Electromancer Storm builds, you can just smack them in the air for 2, and then you need 1 less Storm, which is kind of hilarious. You could even like play this in like a blue-red sky, like a blue-red, like evasive tempo kind of deck. 2 power flyer on 2 that just makes all your spells cheaper is not nothing. And then it has a line of text, which I made this call out on North 100 that you'll see tomorrow. 2 and a blue, sacrifice Thunderclap Drake. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy it for each time you've cast your commander from the command zone this game. It is going to be so funny if somebody is playing like a Yogg-Will Storm list and they have this card and they need to sacrifice it to then recast it off Yogg-Will to increase their lethal storm count. If that ever happens, let me know and I'll hook you up. And Scout's honor, but it has to happen. Like, you gotta let me know, because that would be fucking hilarious that this ability might show up. Lock and load. We're not talking about this on we didn't talk about this on the set review. 2 and a blue, sorcery, draw a card, and then draw a card for each other instant or sorcery spell you've cast this turn, and plot for 3 and a blue. I could see this card maybe showing up in High Tide. High Tide is bad, but you know, some of the other decks we talked about are bad. Just a deck being bad never stops us from talking about it. I mean, we talk about mono black all the time. Honka. Yeah, I could see this maybe showing up in like a High Tide or like a Heartbeat Storm deck. Like, if you plot it, great. You get the free cast this, draw a bunch of cards. But even without that, like, 3 mana drawing 3 cards in a deck like that is not that far out and could be something. Eris, Roar of the Storm, 8 blue and a red for a 4/4 elemental warlock. Flying prowess. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 4/4 dragon elemental token with flying and prowess. And the spell costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instant and sorcery cards in your graveyard. I think this card is worth talking about. I don't know if it's like, if in the end it is going to be worthwhile playing. We are talking about this card on North 100, which is kind of funny. But it, like, the getting different mana values for instants and sorceries in your graveyard is not that big of an ask. Especially when Force of Will gives you a 5, Pyrokinesis gives you a 6, Treasure Cruise gives you an 8, even though it, you know, can eat up your graveyard. You got plenty of 1s in there. You know, Mind Collapse can give you a 4. Just like, it's not that difficult to see a world where this card only costs 4 or 2. I think 2 is actually, like, having 4 spells in your yard that have different mana values is not that tough to get. And the second part is going to sound like a meme, but it's going to sound like a meme. And Cameron, I'm glad you're here. Thank you for the raid. I hope you had a good stream. I hope Civilization got really cived. We're talking about cards from OTJ. We were on to the commander cards. The fact that this card can pitch to both Force of Will, pitches to Force of Will, Force of Negation, Pyrokinesis, and Fury is relevant. Because, I mean, that's relevant for every gold card, but for a card that is occasionally situational or just big, like if you end up, let's say you have to treasure cruise and then you can't cast this card because you exiled, all the spells in your graveyard. It's a large card that you could just pitch to any of your free spells, which is worthwhile. Like it, and the fact that the decks that would play this card are also just like all in on every kind of pitch card that they can find. I mean, it makes it a little easier to justify the inclusion. Yeah, I'll give this card a shot. On to the Sultai list, and there is like nothing in here because it is all steal your opponent's stuff. This card's kind of funny. I think it's hilarious that this is a green card. I mean, it makes sense that it's a green card because what it does is pretty powerful. Tower Winder, 1 and a green for a 1/1 creature snake with reach and death touch. When it ETBs, search your library and graveyard for a card named Command Tower. Reveal it and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle. It's just so good. This card is so good for Commander. 2 mana 1/1 reach death touch is really busted. And then finding, like, just drawing a card, hell yeah. Hitting your land drop, hell yeah. This is the kind of card that just makes me want to play Command Tower in every single mono green deck. Yeah, very, very goofy. This card technically return like it. The Savvy Trader, 4 mana 3/3 ETB exile permanent in your graveyard. You can play that card as long as it remains exiled. Spells you cast anywhere other than your hand cost 1 less to cast. Exiling something permanently, well, not permanently because you could just play it. But only hitting permanents, and then also if this gets killed, you lose the cost reduction. Feels very expensive. Witnesses are at their best. Eternal Witness effects are at their best when they are returning, spells. And the fact that this doesn't put it into your hand can also have certain implications on like setting up different card interactions and discard outlets and all that. Okay, this is the card that's on the set. I still don't think this card is good. 1 and a black for a 2/1 Varmint. Death Touch, Lifelink, and then an ability that will never come up. I don't think this card's good enough for mono black. Been thinking about this for an entire day. That's it. I'm just getting this out there. There got to be better cards. Got to be better cards. This ninja's a bit too expensive. I did see that J-Mick Unyielding said that Felix 5 Boots, they pitched for calling it the Rodeo Plasm, which I kind of like that. Felix 5 Boots is a very good name. That said, Felix 5 Boots, I kind of wish that a name so evocative would have tied in more with the mechanics of the card. And I think Rodeoplasm does exactly that. Like, Rodeoplasm is such a goofy ass word, right? We have Rumbleweed. Rodeoplasm is just, it, harkens back to obviously the Mimeoplasm. It's already a cowboy ooze rogue. Like, there have been a lot of negative comments about this card's abilities and stuff because, yeah, this card's messed up and this kind of design space is pretty boring. At least this one requires there's a bit more build around like this than something like Panharmonicon. But yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of tired of doubling things. I think most people are tired of doubling things, except for people, except for the people that are just like absolute sickos, just degenerate. Pitched a fair number of names text directly inspired by cowboy magic. Glad of it. I mean, there's a lot to be found here. Cowboy magic is a deep well. Yeah, I think this ninja is too short on like this ability it's not bad. You deal whenever one or more creatures you control deal damage to a player, create a treasure token and manifest the top card of that player's library. So this card it's a 6 mana card, so you're not hard casting it. 4 mana for ninjutsu is like, we have Fallen Shinobi. It's not the end of the world, but the fact that when Fallen Shinobi hits, it feels like you win the game. When this hits, you're like, oh dang, that stinks. Well, Wrath of God. Or like, well, I guess I'll block. Like I don't feel like this does enough. It is relevant that this doesn't matter. The ability doesn't matter if the Soul Reaver hits them or like your manifested creature can hit them. You can keep hitting them with Baleful Strix or Icefang Caudal and continue to get this ability. And that part is pretty neat. So maybe I'll give this card a shot if I ever build like the ninjas deck in Highlander. But I don't know. We're spoiled by Fallen Shinobi is what I want to say. And Springleaf Avenger. Like that card, I don't know if people remember how busted this card is. But like this card just kills people. 4 mana hits you for 6 regrowth? Jesus Christ. How would ninjas work in Highlander anyways? You play like Sultai, Heavy Disruption, Evasive, cheap creatures, and then you have these ninjas as the like way of closing the life total lead, right? Like you play your Baleful Strix and your Icefang Caudal, and you have, you could have Mana Dorks if you want. You could play just cheap evasive threats. You could play like Dothy Voidwalker, Vendilion Clique, Brazen Borrower, all those friends. Orcish Bowmaster is pretty good. Like you're kind of just like a Sultai gotcha, and then you have a top end with these ninjas, right? You have like, I don't know. People gave Surge crap for it, but you can tell that I mean it because I'll actually defend Surge here. Because like if we are playing the Soul Reaver, then and we're playing a Sultai Ninjas deck, then we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Like that's like 9 ninjas. That's, come on. You're telling me that a third or over a third of your creature base being a specific type isn't enough to call it ninjas? Like, what do you want? What do you people want? It's not a ninjas deck. You're not playing Ninja of the New Moon. It's just like, come on. Come on. A deck isn't just like, if a deck has a name or an archetype that focuses on one thing, like it's not just about the ninjas. It's about how do you facilitate these ninjas? How do you clear the board? How do you attack with evasive cards? Like you need those cards too. Yeah, it's not just why or what you, it's not just what you're ninjutsuing. It's how you're ninjaing, like Plachao says, and it's why you are ninjaing. Like, why are you playing these ninjas? And it's like, well, because I like bug disruption, right? I like the disruptive cards that bug gives, but I find that it lacks the ability to close the game, right? Like that's a reasonable call. Like how do bug decks kill people? You get stuff like Shieldred, which is pretty good. I'm not saying you don't play Shieldred. You probably play some of these cards too, but like Shieldred, Murktide Regent, and then just like random idiots. But then if you're killing them with the random selection of like cheap idiots that you can find in Jeskai Green or Jeskai, then why are you playing Bug? You need a good reason to play that color combination. I mean, your reason can always be, I just want to play it. But like, I don't know, Abrupt Decay isn't the selling point it used to be. But if your selling point is, well, I get to play these cheap roadblock or these cheap speed bump cards, right? of Kodal, Baleful Strix, whatever. And even Tarmogoyf is just like a brick shithouse that ends up being a pretty reasonable attacker. And then I can convert that into more value off of Fallen Shinobi or Springleaf Avenger or Orochi Soul Reaver while smacking them for a shitload of damage. Like, it lets you close. It gives you this like lava axe kill, which is pretty spicy. Thoughtseize. And why is the green there? Why is the green there? This is the Outlaw deck. I do not think there are any good cards in the Outlaw deck. Yeah, there are no good cards in the Outlaw deck. Yeah. Okay, great. So that's the set. That's the set. I have some thoughts. Mechanically, the set looks very interesting. I like plot. Saddle is kind of an interesting mechanic where I don't know, I haven't really played with it. But I think it's an interesting mechanic that says like, well, what if we had vehicles that also just like live their own life? Right? Like, we got this big sheep. Does this sheep stop doing stuff when it's not saddled up? No. It's just an animal. And Magic has a lot of animals doing stuff. And that's cool, right? Plot, pretty neat. Investing in your future. Giving options for when you are playing a card, how you're playing a card. Spree, again, flexibility. An interesting approach to the kicker escalate style mechanic. And the design space for what these cards can do is super open. It lets you get very, like, some of them are better than others. Like, even when I'm talking about how Getaway Glamour feels very masturbatory, that's, it's still, I would rather them explore doing this kind of goofy stuff than not. Yeah, I like the second spell a turn is always a cool thing to do, because again, it teaches people to maybe invest in their future and have a bigger turn. You can get an immediate payoff, or you can get a stronger payoff later, or you could play plot cards that set up for a stronger payoff later, or you could build your deck in a way that includes cheaper cards so that you can double spell. And that's kind of neat. And cheaper cards are often interactive, so it pushes people to playing more interactive cards. There's a bunch of good going on for this set, I gotta say. And for what it's worth, I feel like the art direction and the creative direction on a lot of the cards that are not legendary creatures is pretty great. I know that there's a lot of discourse surrounding this set that ultimately just boils down to, it boils down to the fact that this set really shines a light on an issue in modern Magic the Gathering and cranks it up to the max. And that part sucks. I like legendary creatures. I just don't like as all these fucking legends showing up. I like new legendary creatures. I don't like seeing old legendary creatures that feel like they've been shoehorned into this set. And you can create a narrative that explains why they are there, why they have shown up, what is the draw. But that still that is not just like okay, I get it. Right? Like, you could be like, well, it's the villains plane, which is why all the villains are here and why they've shown up. And in this point of like the space of time, they've all appeared. And I gotta tell you, I'm not buying it. I'm just not really buying it. It's like, okay, I guess you've created a reason as to why Marchese is here. But I don't think we care. I don't personally care why Marchese is here. And I also just am not, like, I'm in a place where I'm not really upset about it. I am just kind of mid. It feels like fan service. Yeah, I'm apathetic. And I don't want to be apathetic over the fucking cowboy magic set. I don't even care about loot. They put a League of Legends character in here, whatever. If this set were, and I know that this is a somewhat unrealistic expectation, right? Because you're going to want to have your commanders you're going to want to juice up the amount of commanders in your set, because that's what sells product, right? You want as many legends as possible because people like legendary creatures. They get attached to these characters. They build their own headcanon around some of them, even if they haven't read the narrative. They're like, oh yeah, old Rudiger over here is he just, no questions, no refunds. Oh, we stand an old Rudiger. Like, they'll do that. Where was I going with this? I get why they have all these legendary creatures. They sell packs. They're popular. People get attached to them. I don't really want a lot of legends. And I know that this set is an outlier, that this is supposed to be a villain set or a legend set or whatever, and that, like Maro has stated, there are going to be less legends in the sets moving forward. But this doesn't feel good. Like, I know that even if this is the exception, I think we're tired of the exception. It's not a neat trick. It's like not... It's not a bit that pulls me in. It's not why I personally like Magic the Gathering. And for something that is so goofy, or like cowboys in general, the cowboy thing can be goofy. It can be lighthearted. It can also be a pretty interesting setting, a way of showcasing new legends, a way of, showing that you have really changed how you represent indigenous cultures in your games. Like, you don't have to start off every booster draft by talking about, the genocide of indigenous people or whatever. But, you can make a set that is a bit more respectful, a bit, that provides something, anything, instead of just ignoring it. Like, if they did very well with Kamigawa, they did well with Lost Caverns of Ixalan, or not Lost, was it Lost Caverns? Yeah, Lost Caverns of Ixalan, and like, that builds up a lot of good faith that they're going to handle a theme that is honestly pretty problematic and just filled with a bunch of different ways to handle it. And it's just, we get something that is on the scale from either nothing to not enough. And it feels like this set is just messy. It feels like I'm okay if the cowboy set is like a big old pot of chili with just dumping a bunch of shit in there. That's not what this feels like. This set feels like swamp water to me. This set feels like swamp water, or like a fast food campaign where you have this set is the Travis Scott meal of it's the Travis Scott meal of Magic the Gathering sets. And hey, you know what? Part of the Travis Scott meal, it's pretty good, right? It's hard to complain about all that. Extra ice. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I have been looking forward to the cowboy set for a long time. And it's not just myself, right? It is like the cowboy set was like a long running meme in Magic social media for like over a decade of like, where's the cowboy set? We want the cowboy set. And then we get it. And then I got to look at cards like holy cow. And I got to see fucking Fibblethip in a cowboy hat because there's going to be a plushie of Fibblethip in a cowboy hat. And for some reason, Jisa and Geralf are here, because why not? Why not? Who gives a shit about exploring this plane of getting to drink in all of the settings? Who gives a shit? Have you ever watched a Western movie? There's really not much, like you get, Western movies do cover a lot of character development, but they're also more than happy to leave holes in the character development and show these figures and these characters that are so infinitely far from perfect that are sometimes unrecognizable because you're given incomplete information up at the top of the film. And then, yes, like Yak Shack is saying, landscapes. It sounds like such a cliche, like film bro thing to say. But so many Western movies are also just about soaking in the atmosphere, the vibes, the cinematography, the landscape, showing just like how harsh the terrain can be compared to, like, there are so many conversations that can be about like the brutality of a Western setting, from the driving motives behind the protagonists or the characters that are the focus, and why they're all such shitheads compared to the people that they're fighting against that are also shitheads, but shitheads in a different way. And then you're just surrounded by a landscape that does not want you there. And it's a parody of a Western. It's a parody of a parody. It's like it feels like a Western that was made by people that knew what Westerns were, but had not watched a Western, or it's like a Western made by someone who's it's a Western that was made by people whose reference is that episode of TNG where they're in the Wild West. Is what I mean. It's, yeah, their idea of Western is like a Doctor Who or a Star Trek The Next Generation, like Monster of the Week kind of episode. I do, so to really close this thought, because I don't want to be too negative, because there are a lot of parts about this set that I like, right? Mechanically, I think it's interesting and powerful without being too powerful in a lot of spots. The cards that feel incredibly juiced, where I'm like, where's the downside, are not like Minsk and Boo or Initiative or Shieldred level. There's stuff like this Snake Horse, right? Of like, wait a minute, it's a Bob that you get the trigger on attack, but if you saddle it, they lose the life? Where's the downside? And it's like, that's cool. That's where you want to put extra points in, right? The new legends. I love the flavor of a lot of these new legends. Like Taiwa Keen, Perfect Shot. Extremely cool. Extremely cool. I know nothing about this character, but I want to know more, because you'll best keep yourself out of my sights. cold ass line, incredibly powerful, unique, and thematic abilities, and just some of the hardest art in the game. Just incredible art, and worth mentioning, perfect for a Western. Where's the horizon? If the horizon's at the bottom of the screen, it's interesting. If the horizon's at the top of the screen, it's interesting. If the horizon's anywhere else, it's not fucking interesting. I like, where'd you go? I like Gem Lightfoot. I want to know more about like this character and the nomadic Atene. The nomadic Atene rarely settle anywhere for more than a few seasons, but Gem never lets that stop her from seeing every last corner. Then show this on all the legends on the cards. Like, I want to know more. Please. I'm begging you. I don't give a shit about Fibblethip. Why the fuck is Comball here? I just want to know more about these characters. Why is Girid here? Why are we talking about Ariette the Beguiler? There's a fucking bear doctor. There's a humanoid bear doctor. Even if Doc Arlock might be from something else, but I feel like I want to know more about this. This card is the first card that I'm going to buy a copy of. Like the foil full art version of Bonnie Pale. Like, yeah, give me this shit. Give me this. I need more. I wanted more of this. I wanted more of the inhabitants of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. I wanted more of people interacting with the land and with the wildlife, and that captured Americana in all of its good and its bad. And I don't feel like I got a lot of that. Yeah, the folklore legends are the best. They're absolutely the best. I don't feel like we got enough of that. So that part is a little sour for me. Yeah. That's my thought. Cool. Thank you for listening to me. There hasn't been music playing in the background. Shit. We listened to one song and then it cut out, and nobody told me. Yeah. Outlaws of Thunder Junction, huh? Anyways, we'll see you for the next set in 6 weeks. When's the next set coming out? It's like coming out in like a day. I don't actually know when it's coming out. Here, let's take a look. I was mostly making a joke, but you never know. All right, so Outlaws of Thunder Junction. And then Modern Horizons. When's Modern Horizons 3 coming out? June 14th? Oh my god, are we actually getting like a break? Maybe? Oh my god. We're actually getting a bit of a break. Well, technically Thunder Junction is going to be... When does Thunder Junction release? April 19th? Yeah, we get two... we get 2 months. We get 2 months until we actually have the physical cards in our hands, but you know that we're going to start talking about previews. And what do you want to say? 2 weeks? You want to take a bet? What do you think? When are we going to start talking about MH3 previews? 3 sets a year? 3 sets and a core set, baby. Take me back to 3 sets, core set, commander product. That's all I want. And maybe throw in a draft innovation. That's what I want. 3 mainline sets, a core set, commander product, draft innovation. That's all I want. I think we're honestly a little close to that. And then they have a couple of other products, and there's always commander products for every set. And then, yeah, it's just... the week of Junction release. April 30th. So Junction is out... When did I say? The 17th? 19th of April. So the 19th of April. And it's the 4th currently. I'm going to say... we are going to see them on either the 29th of April or the 6th of May. Yeah, the secret layer I just ignore. Secret layers don't count. They're just reprints. I did get a copy of Intrepid Paleontologist. Thank you, Pachow. Thank you for checking in. Okay, is Magic Online up? Where am I? Is Magic Online up? Magic Online is up. Great. Because that's it for the preview discussion. That's it. Did you miss the set review? Well, there's always the VOD.